Welcome to Plowman's Backyard. Today we are just letting out our chicks. They're about 3 months old, maybe about 16 to 18 weeks old. Anyways, they're just about the right size to integrate into our barnyard flocks and our chanteclers. So today's the first day we let them out of their run. We've been keeping them in this run here, mainly because it is foolproof for predators. We haven't had any issues of any animals getting in there. Sorry, the bugs are absolutely terrible this early in the morning. We usually keep our chicks just in one of these two runs. So that's what we've been doing in order to protect them from any predators. So now it's time to make sure that they integrate well with our chantecler chickens as well as our barnyard mixed chickens. So now it's just time for them to get used to the other members of the flock. So what our plan is to do, we're going to do this for a few days, let them out, get used to the flocks, and then we're going to introduce them to the new flocks. So what we're going to do is you can see we got roosters, we got some hens. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate the roosters from the hens. The roosters will probably stay in this pen here until they leave the farm. And then what we're going to do is separate the hens. So any of the barnyard mix hens will be going to the barnyard mix flock, and any of the partridge chantecler hens will be going to the partridge chantecler flock. So that is our goal. So I thought I'd just give you a little update, let you see how the chicks are doing and see how many roosters and hens we got from our batch that we did in the spring. I'm going to show you also which ones are roosters and which ones are hens. And there's a couple we're still questioning, but I'm pretty sure I have an idea of what they are. Two of our roosters here. Another rooster. We've got quite a few roosters, but that's okay. Yes. So these guys here, he's mixed with a blue lace Wyandotte with our buff Orpington rooster. This big guy here, he's our biggest rooster. He is a partridge chantecler. He's quite handsome, but he's not necessarily the nicest, but he does let you pick him up. He's not too bad right now, but I can see the temperament in him coming out as he gets older. Right here we have a partridge chantecler hen. This here is a buff Orpington hen. That's a rooster. All this line here are pretty much all roosters, except I think the lady in the back there, I believe that's a hen there. We're not too sure what this is. We haven't figured it out yet. To me, I'm like, if I look at the legs, I want to say it's a rooster. If I look at the head, I'm like, its wattle and stuff is quite, or its comb, sorry, is quite pale. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's a hen. But the fact that it doesn't really have a tail, I can't really figure out what it is. But I'm gearing more towards a rooster. But it's hard to say. So we're just going to now show you a rooster from our young flock. First thing, as you can tell, is the wattle and the comb are quite large here. So he has a huge wattle in his comb, and the fact that they're very red is a sign of a rooster. And the other signs here is we've got some hackle feathers. So these feathers here, they're quite skinny, pointy. This is a sign of a rooster as well. Another sign of a rooster is the saddle feathers. You can see here they're just starting, but these feathers are very skinny and long, and what they'll do is they'll droop down here, and then you've got the tail at the end. I think they're called the sickle feathers, and they're actually quite pointy. You can see that they've got little points on the end, very undefined. So all these aspects are a good sign that this is definitely a rooster, and that's what you want to look for in your flock. So the other thing is that the legs tend to be quite larger and thicker, and they tend to kind of stand more upright with their head and neck. So this is definitely a rooster, and those are different signs you want to look for and how to tell if it's a rooster or not. So here's one of our buff Orpington hens. Now how we can tell this is a hen is the fact that her comb is very pale and there's no wattle here. Anyways, her feathers at the back are quite rounded, and they have like a shape and a uniform shape. The other thing is buff Orpingtons tend to have a bit of fluff at the back, so it's a bit harder to tell, but she has no saddle feathers. Nothing that's very skinny and coming down like the other rooster that we've seen. And so those are different signs. So you want to see paleness in the face compared to the other members of the flock. And then her tail. You want a defined tail, very rounded feathers, and no saddle feathers starting off. This is one of our partridge chantecler roosters. These birds are winter hardy, so they don't typically have large combs and large wattles, just to help them with the winter months. We can tell for one with him, he is much larger than the hens. His feet and everything are very large, but he definitely has the coloration, very undefined feathers at the back, very pointy tails, and that's what you're looking for. And then he's got the coloration throughout his body. And so he hasn't really gotten any of his hackle feathers yet. He's the smaller of our partridge chantecler roosters, but the females don't typically have any of this coloration. They sometimes will have this coloration at their tail, but he has a very undefined tail, and the females have a very straight, defined tail. And I'm going to get a female and we'll show you the difference. So this is one of our partridge chantecler hens. So as you can see with her, she is a bit more dainty. They tend to be a bit smaller of a bird than the rooster. I guess you could say wattle is very much paler. It's a lot smaller than what the rooster's was. Even the rooster has a very small one, but this one is even a lot smaller. The hackle feathers are very different on a female than a male. And once we put her down, you'll see the difference in her tail. So she does have the coloration in her tail, but the tail tends to go a bit kind of like, it's very defined and straight. So rounded feathers, there's no hackle feathers, and their tails tend to kind of go more on like a triangle than the rooster kind of has. Like his go up quite high and then fall down, where when we put her down, you'll be able to see the difference. And her legs are a lot smaller than the roosters. There she goes. There's another partridge chantecler hen. A bit of a triangular tail compared to what our roosters have. Here's another hen here. And yes, hello, my hens. And then there's the rooster we were looking at earlier. His tail tends to go quite down. Yes. So these bunch here are our roosters, kind of huddled together. You can see they got their hackle feathers going on, the very red combs, and undefined tails at this point. Well, thanks for joining us here as we integrate our birds and get them used to the other flock. So make sure when you are integrating your birds, especially young birds, make sure that they are the proper size. Don't introduce new small chicks to your large flock. They tend to pick on the smaller birds, so you want them to be roughly the same size, which is why I've waited to about now. They still are a bit smaller than the rest of the flock, but they definitely do. They're a lot bigger and they have a better chance of fitting in. New birds or even young birds or injured birds or different birds tend not to be allowed to be near the water and the food. So also when we do come back to integrate them in with our new birds, you're basically going to want to make sure that you have 2 feeders and 2 waterers so that they integrate, because you don't want your birds to get stressed out. And just make sure that when you're doing that, just give them time. You know, don't just rush and put them in together. Give them time to get to know each other and give them time to grow and be ready. So anyways, those are my tips. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do enjoy this video and you want to stick around, don't forget to sub us, and we'll see you next time.